quick news update. As always, I've got a good few topics here to dive into in this video. So starting with, of course, the PlayStation 5. So it looks like the Luar exploit or Mastercore exploit using Star Wars Racer Revenge may not be entirely dead. Now, we were hoping that a workaround would be found by Gedjina because, of course, this was the exploit that was going to be chained with the Poops kernel exploit to be able to jailbreak the PS5 up to firmware 12.0. So a lot more firmwares would be supported, but it did require getting a very niche and now very expensive game to be able to load the jailbreak. Now, an issue was, of course, discovered that certain functions were stripped from the PlayStation 2 emulator that this exploit relies on higher firmwares, because it was initially developed on a lower firmware, and then when it was ported to higher firmwares, the issue was discovered, and it looked like this exploit was going to be dead in the water from that point. However, Gedjina has been hard at work trying to come up with solutions and workarounds, but it does look like some progress is being made in this area to potentially get this exploit working to be able to chain with a kernel exploit to jailbreak up to 12.0 on the PS5. So Gedjina was able to get arbitrary rewrite as well as ROP working, and also it works up to firmware 12.70, which is the latest firmware for the PS5, but obviously that's just the userland portion of the exploit. When it's chained with the kernel exploit, it will only work up to firmware 12.0 to jailbreak the PS5, but things are definitely looking very promising now with this exploit. It looks like it may have been revived, although there still seems to be some work to go, but it definitely looks like it's going in the right direction to be able to jailbreak our PS5s up to firmware 12.0 if you have the game Star Wars Racer Revenge. So pivoting to the PS4, we have an update to the Vue after free exploits from version 1.4 up to 2.0. So this is the PlayStation Vue jailbreak on the PS4. So we have the net control stability improved. So we now have a more stable version of the Poops kernel exploits when loaded using this version. We also have a fully remote installer, which requires an internet connection or a separate PC. So this can use a new save file, an online save file, that downloads the exploits when you load PlayStation Vue, and you have the option to install a light version or the full version. The light version, of course, is just the version that runs the exploit and then automatically closes the PlayStation Vue application once it's loaded. That's all it does. It does not come with the jailbreak menu, whereas if you install the full version, then you get the full jailbreak menu where you can either select jailbreak or use a payload loader or edit the config menu. So you have a few more options if you use the full version, but if you just want to run the jailbreak and nothing else, then the quickest way is to just install the light version. Now, we also have an extended storage install method, which I made a full tutorial on, which is another way that you can install the PlayStation Vue jailbreak without having to restore a backup file on a retail console, but it does require having an extended storage drive that has a minimum capacity above 256 gigabytes and also an activated account on your PS4. If you meet those requirements, then you can effectively just flash that extended storage image onto your USB, plug that into the PS4, and that will get the correct version of PlayStation Vue installed for you, at which point you can then use the online save to install the exploit without having to restore the backup file. And then for the manual installation, when updating from a previous jailbreak or a previous version of the PlayStation Vue jailbreak to version 2.0, you can, of course, use the manual method. Although there's also been an update to this, we covered the Vue initial installer from Lappy. There is a new version 1.3 of that installer package that you can install using a previous jailbreak, and then by running that application, you now have the option to install version 2.0. The light version or the full version can be selected, and it will automatically install the exploits for you, as well as installing the latest Gold Hen payload and also the save file that is required for the exploits, which can then be copied over using the Apollo save tool, and that will get the exploit installed very quickly if you're updating from a previous version or a previous jailbreak. We also have added theme support by Arab Pixel, which I covered in the previous news update. However, we now have a theme maker that was created by Lappy, so you can make your own custom themes easily using the theme setting that's been added to the config section in the menu, and you can apply your custom themes from within there. So those are the updates to the PlayStation Vue jailbreak for the PS4. We also have an easier way now to manage our save files for the PS4 and PS5 through Garlic Saves, and a new save manager for the PS5, the Garlic Save Manager. Now, I made a dedicated video on this, I'll leave in the video description, but generally the idea here is that we can finally manage our PlayStation 5 saves, similar to the Apollo saves tool that we have for the PS4, we have some kind of equivalent now for the PS5. This includes being able to decrypt, replace decrypted saves, as well as encrypting and resigning encrypted save files, but for your PlayStation 5 game saves, whereas previously we could only, manipulate PS4 saves on the PS5, now we can manipulate PS5 saves themselves as well. So this is a pretty big development here, released by Earth Hungyan. You just send the payload over to your PS5, and then simply access the web panel by entering your PS5's IP address with :8082 into your web browser on your computer, and that will take you over to the Garlic Save Manager that's been hosted on the console. And from there, you can browse all of your installed PlayStation 5 save files, and by selecting them, it will mount those save files that you can access the encrypted save data. You can download the encrypted save data, download the encrypted version of the save, you can dump it to a USB drive, and you can also replace the mounted files for the save. So in my case, I did a little example where I took Elden Ring, and I imported my PC save from the PC version to the PS5 save file by extracting the encrypted version of the save, and then simply replacing the memory.dat file with my modified one from the PC version, which effectively replaced the save. So after the save data was replaced, I could unmount the save and then load up the game, and I had that modified save applied. I had my PC save now running on the PS5 version, so I could immediately access the DLC, which was great. So that's, of course, one little example of what you can do. You can also turn decrypted saves into encrypted saves and reassign save files to different accounts, so they will work on a different profile or a different PS5. So you have those options too with this save manager. Now, beyond that, there's also the community project of garlicsaves.com, which you can create an account on, and this uses other people's PS5s as effectively workers that can be used to perform save operations on the saves that people upload to the website, just like the Discord save bot. So you can actually contribute your own console as a worker that can then be used by other people who upload their saves to the website. So the more PS4 and PS5s that people contribute to the project, the better, because there'll be more consoles available to perform the save operations that people upload through the site. And it works with PS4 and I believe PS5 saves as well. So you can simply take your save files. If you want to resign a save, you can simply add your account ID as a profile in the dashboard section, and then select that profile, and then any save operations you perform will be resigned to that account. If you want to resign a save file, for instance, you just select the resign option, and then drag and drop your save files inside, and select the profile, and it will resign them to that profile. So it does make the whole process of manipulating your save files a lot easier. So the other big benefit of being able to manipulate the save files now on the PS5, of course, we do have many games that can be used to load jailbreaks now through a modified save, whether that's the PlayStation Vue jailbreak that uses a modified save, or of course you've got the YARP exploits with Arcade Spirits, the new challengers, you've got the Lua exploits with the Japanese games, and you also have the Lua Core exploit with Star Wars Racer Revenge and Okagi Shadow King with the Master Core exploit. So it just makes it easier to reassign saves for those games, plus being able to manipulate the PS5 saves directly means that for games like Arcade Spirits, the new challengers, that also has a PS5 version of the game, then the PS5 version could also be used to load the jailbreak now instead of just the PS4 version of the game, which is another benefit that something like this now offers. Now, we also have a little update for Void Shell, some of the developments going on there, a new file manager that is going to be added into Void Shell to allow us to download and upload files between our PS5 and our computer, or whatever device you're running the web panel on. Of course, Void Shell gives you the ability to do lots of things with your PS5. It has the shadow mount functionality to mount your games, as well as also being able to remotely install package files and send payloads, and a bunch of other useful features. So it's going to get a file manager implemented too, to be able to upload and download files. It's going to be very handy for being able to transfer your game dumps over to the console. There's also a web server payload for the PS4 now from Arab Pixel. The idea here is you create a WebServe directory in the data folder, and then you can transfer any web files over to that folder, and when you load the payload, it will host them on the PS4, and it comes with a payload loader site that you can host to be able to execute payloads with the Gold 10 payloads loader. So that's been added there for the PS4, although there does seem to be an issue where it doesn't seem to work on certain firmwares, because on my 12.52 system, the payload just causes the console to freeze, so it may not be working on certain firmwares at the moment. So anyway, those were the main updates I wanted to cover here in this video, so hope you guys enjoyed this one or found the information useful. If you did, please leave a like and subscribe, and